Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning.
Morning.
Mr. Green, how are you this morning?
It's fine, sir.
Good. Secretary, on June 30th or prior, did the governor discuss his full veto of the Corrections Department funding with you?
No.
Did anyone from the Office of the General Counsel discuss any constitutional issues with you concerning the governor's full veto of the Corrections Department on June 30th at any time?
No.
How was your department funded between July 1st and December 29th? Without a budget in place.
It was funded through the treasurer.
Okay. Do you know the specific line item they used to get you the money in?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know that.
If you compare your spending between July 1st and December 29th of this fiscal year with the previous fiscal year, did you spend the exact same amount of money, less money, or more money?
I can get you the specifics on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
On December 29th or prior, did Governor Wolf discuss his decision or involve you in the decision-making process in his partial veto of your budget?
No.
When did the governor contact you about his partial veto of the budget?
Well, we're in communication with the front office, if you will. I can't say I had a specific discussion with the governor on it.
When did the front office notify you of the partial budget?
I don't remember the exact date.
Okay. Was it prior to or after?
It's right around the same time.
Fine.
Give or take a day or two.
Did they bring up any constitutional issues with that partial veto with you at that time?
They did not at that time.
Did they mention that they were looking to continue payments after the veto at that time of your appropriation?
We didn't discuss that.
Okay. When did the Office of General Counsel contact you about the governor's partial veto of the budget?
Well, as I assume you know, the chief counsel in the agency is a dual report to both the department and Office of General Counsel. So in essence, there's continual discussion between the Office of General Counsel and the departments.
Okay. Specifically, Gregory Moulton Jr., Deputy General Counsel.
That's Jeffrey.
Jeffrey. When was he in contact with your department about constitutional issues of the governor's veto?
Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
No. And you wouldn't know when the OGC, do you know when the OGC notified you of their constitutional concerns of the governor's veto at all?
I don't know dates, no.
Okay.
Again, especially with the general counsel, there's kind of constant discussion. Obviously this brings up a constitutional issue. We have a myriad of constitutional issues and
Yes.
in a bunch of different ways. So
Yes.
I don't want the notion that there's a constant back and forth around all constitutional issues in our department.
Okay. Section 4, Article 16 and 15 of the Pennsylvania Constitution specify the governor's power to veto line item veto appropriations bills and the process for overriding a governor's veto or line item veto bills. Specifically, the Pennsylvania Constitution gives sole veto override authority to the General Assembly. The General Assembly vote by a 2/3 vote as specified in the Pennsylvania Constitution to override the governor's line item veto of the Corrections Department, to your knowledge.
Did they override the veto?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Are you or will you receive funding above the governor's line item funding level?
We have, yes.
How much will we receive?
It's approximately $160 million a month is our operation. Sorry, right.
Will that amount exceed the amount appropriated in the enacted general appropriations bill that if the governor hadn't vetoed it, the $1.895427 billion?
That's difficult to answer because vacations and holidays kind of increase leave time, which ultimately increases spend. So it would be in the ballpark. That's as good as I can answer you at this point.
So the possibility is the treasurer's office could allocate funding above the 1.827 that was approved in that appropriations bill, possibly.
Yeah, I don't believe that appropriations bill that you're talking about passed, right?
Well, the governor vetoed it. I was asking if, with the allocation from the treasurer's office to you that the treasurer approved, would the $160 million a month allocation exceed $1.895427 billion?
Well, again, I give you a ballpark number.
Okay.
I can't predict how much we're going to spend. It's in the
Okay.
it's in the ballparks.
Could it? Possibly.
It could go both ways,
Could
possibly.
it go both ways? Okay. What process allowed your department to receive funding above the line item vetoed amount?
Actually, there was a decision that you have basically competing constitutional issues. One, as I spoke earlier, don't have the ability to release people. There's no mechanism for the Department of Corrections to release 50,000. Not that anybody wants that or
Yeah.
all those caveats, but we don't have a mechanism. So then the next thing goes to what the conditions of confinement are. Do we have to pay staff? Again, there's a decision around paying staff. And then it goes to the care, custody, and control. It goes to the medical needs and feeding individuals and those kinds of things. So I believe what the legal opinion said, and if you don't have it, I can certainly get you a copy of both the.
I have it.
Okay, good. Because I'm not a lawyer. Okay.
Yeah.
Barely a C student actually in college, if I'm telling the truth. So I'll be careful here, but there is certainly competing constitutional interests, and the treasurer decided, consistent with what Office of General Counsel decided, that we have to maintain our core mission things, and that should be funded. With that being said, that doesn't mean everything. So it's really specifically around, in essence, care, custody, and control, and the conditions of confinement.
Can that process now be used to always exceed any appropriated amount?
Again, you're over my head. You'll have to get a legal opinion on that.
Okay. Does the PA Constitution provide a mechanism for the treasurer to override a governor's veto?
I don't know that.
If the only mechanism to override a governor's veto is an action of the General Assembly, and the General Assembly did not act, then how can funding above the governor's line item have been approved?
Yeah, again, that's not my bailiwick.
When you were notified the Office of General Counsel was working on a brief on why the treasurer should make a payment to your department, or when were you officially notified the OGC was working on a brief on why the treasurer should make a payment of your department above the governor's line item veto?
I don't know.
Don't know. Is your department now constitutionally protected, making it unconstitutional for any governor to veto fully or partially your department in future budgets?
Again, not a constitutional expert.
If the governor can now override his own veto, what is the purpose of the separations of powers spelled out in the Pennsylvania Constitution?
Again, not a constitutional expert.
If the governor can now unilaterally fund any department at any level as long as the treasurer has money, then why do we need even a budget process or these hearings?
That sounds more like a philosophical question that
You see where I'm getting at. We have a major problem, and it wasn't your design. You're the secretary. I have great respect for you. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. But because decisions the governor has made, he has put this entire government entity into a constitutional crisis and threw it right on the treasurer to figure out what to do, specifically with your department. And it is a tough decision. Based on his decision, he said no more funding, and then he went back and asked for more funding, overriding his own veto and asking the treasurer to do the same based on U.S. constitutional issues. Now, if we have other entities, and I'm sure we have other entities that have federal mandates, are we now not allowed to veto those items moving forward? And at what point did the governor just throw out veto power for every governor hereafter dealing with budget concerns? This is a major issue, not by your doing, and obviously through your questioning, had the governor come to you and said, what's the repercussion of doing a half-year allocation and leaving the prisons unfunded for an entire half a year, I'm pretty sure you would say, Governor, it's probably not a good idea because I can't shut down my prison, so you better give me funding to get through this fiscal year and prevent a huge constitutional crisis. But within his decision-making process, he did not consult. He made a unilateral decision, and now the OGC's date of February 20th, and if I were to guess and suspect, the OGC did not start looking into this issue until well after the governor's veto, when they realized How the heck are we going to keep our prisons open after the governor's decision? This is very poor decision-making on the governor's end. And in his short tenure, his governing by decree has made a mockery of our representative democracy, found on the explicit separation of powers vested in 3 co-equal branches of government. Unfortunately, the governor's override of his own veto is yet another example of disdain and contempt for the General Assembly and egregious violations of our Constitution. I truly question the governor's decision-making skills, his inability to engage people who have the expertise and knowledge to help him make proper decisions. And today I'm saddened by the unconstitutional actions of both the governor and the treasurer, both constitutional offices which swear to an oath to uphold our state constitution and need not rewrite it to fit their priorities. Again, Mr. Secretary, you're a good man. You're in a tough position. And I think you advocate for your personnel and the protection, the constitutional protection of those who you protect within those prison systems. This is not about you, but it's about actions of your boss. And unfortunately, he isn't here to address those questions. And unfortunately, it falls on you to try to answer these questions. And I do apologize for your predicament in this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.